let's start. And I think I have something to show off for today. After that, I will just let Adolfo take the stage, because I can see that Adolfo has something that he could share with us. So we highly appreciate that. And obviously, as I said, anyone who would like to share something with the community is welcome to post a quick note about this in the chat, and we will be we will be letting you guys speak to our audience about whatever you would like to talk about. So let me just share my screen, because this time around it's going to be a bit of code as well. Not a lot of, but it's something in between a lightning talk and a proper presentation. So I can say it's half-baked, so to speak, in some respects, but I hope you guys will enjoy this. So can you just confirm that you can see my presentation on the screen? Okay, so I will no longer be jumping between the presentation and the chat. So I'm going to talk a bit about Permit, the authorization library we've been coding at Curiosum for already quite some time. It's been over a year since the first presentations we did, also in the Elixir Meetups some time ago. And finally, about 2 months ago, I think, we've released version 0.1. So obviously this doesn't mean stable, but it actually means that it's ready for trying it out for production usage, and we actually have done this to some success. But obviously during the presentation I'm going to talk a bit more into detail about that, and tell you about some of the shortcomings of the library and the paradigm that we have found in practical usage. And also we will tell you a bit about what the near and less near future holds for it. So just a brief note about me. My name is Mike. I'm the co-founder and CTO at Curiosum and the lead maintainer of the library. As I once said during the previous talks, I'm a former Ruby developer, and I miss can a lot. So if you, for those not familiar with this, it's one of the most popular authorization libraries for Ruby, and one of the main traits of that was how easy it was to both construct queries automatically from authorization conditions and use active record to easily retrieve authorizable records, as well as how easy it was to plug it into controllers and ensure everything's authorized. So that was one of the inspirations behind what we did, because if you look at some of the previous, I jumped a bit forward, but if you look at some of the previous talks, I was outlining what the existing authorization solutions are and why I think, well, they don't suck, but they don't satisfy my needs well enough. So hence the decision to do something new. And here comes Permit. So version 0.1 was released. We will share a bit of real-world usage observations and ideas for the library's improvements. So we released Permit 0.1. It consists of 3 repositories available in Hex alongside documentation, which is obviously not perfect, but it's there. Should be enough to get started, but if something's missing, just let us know. So the first repository is only about a very raw syntax of rule definition and the possibility to check them against a specific struct. The second one adds ecto integration to that, so you can preload records, construct ecto queries based on authorization conditions. So, for example, if admin true is required for something to be authorized, then it's going to construct a query which contains that specific condition. And permit Phoenix is something which helps you automatically preload and authorize records in controllers and live views, and obviously take action if authorization is failed. So as I said, this is like the third time we are talking about this in the meetup. So I invite you to just listen to the previous ones for some explanations of the paradigm we use. In one of the presentations, I outlined kind of backlog for 0.1. So I talked about defining rules for arbitrarily named actions, which is done. Plugging in ecto query construction for automatic record preloading in both plug and live view, which is done. I'm making up the documentation, which took some time because I'm sometimes the type of guy who doesn't really do this consistently enough during the development, and this is done. And settling for a stable syntax here and there, I think this is more or less done, although some things have popped up which might require us to do some backwards incompatible changes soon, but we are going to touch on this briefly later on. So in terms of what we have observed in real life usage, we have plugged this into a couple of production grade projects, both internally and for our clients. And basically the first and good thing is that it just works. It might be a trivial conclusion, but most importantly, it works. It really makes development simpler. The library does have some traits that inadvertently make you rethink some solutions you want to take, but it's nothing. It's nothing really. Nothing in terms of showstoppers actually for any of the applications we have used this for. Some missing pieces. The first one, which we have recently talked through internally at Curiosum, is root-based authorization, because sometimes it's rather less practical to think about authorizing resources than about authorizing access to specific pages. And this is something I don't really have a clear solution for right now, but might be worth having a shoot at and rethinking how to do this. Live view event authorization, and I can show you a quick example of that. So in the current implementation available on Hex, we can authorize against URLs changing with handle params, as well as authorize at the very moment the component is mounted. So then we if we have a look at the router, here's the live action, which is then moved into the live action assign, and this action is something that's checked against the rules defined here. So obviously this is something that also calls for an explanation of how we map action names to different actions and so on. But in this case, the create permission means that you can also perform the new action. And if the live action's name is new, then create means that you can create an article as a specific user. And there are no additional conditions about that. So you can just create an article, and that doesn't come with any additional conditions. You can also read any article, which also doesn't have any additional conditions. So if you wanted to just let the user read an article, which is, for example, published, then you would have to just do it like this. And with permit ecto, it would mean that this comes into the query. So then you have the update permission, which also applies for edit. And we have the live action edit here. Obviously, this is not the right scope that we are looking for. Here it is. So here is the scope about articles, and we have the edit live action. And if there is, if the update permission is there, we can also perform the edit action, provided that the user ID matches this one. So this also gets through to the ecto query, which is constructed, and likewise with delete. But the delete thing is a bit problematic, because if you have a look at how this live view is built, then you can see that this link does a navigation to a different URL. So you go into a totally different route. This link, on the other hand, patches the URL in the current live view. So the live action changes, and you have the opportunity to react to that in your code. So you have this handle unauthorized function, which specifies the behavior of what happens when the authorization is not granted. But in the prior implementation that we currently have in the Hex version, it's not possible to correctly authorize the delete action, because it's not based on a patch of the URL, but rather on an event. So this comes into the handle event flow, and right now in the current version it's not supported, and the goal right now is to also be able to authorize against this kind of events. But this also requires us to add a new parameter into the handle unauthorized function, namely the params, because right now there is only action and socket, and we have now added params into the equation, which is going to render this function backwards incompatible. I still don't have a clear way to deal with this, but it's probably going to be a breaking change. So that's the live view event authorization. Then maybe some more control on custom action names could be good, because right now the actions are defined globally for a permission configuration module. So if you have a lot of controllers with a lot of custom action names, you would have to define all of them inside that single module, which is not good. The same goes to fine-grained resource module declaration, which would be about the ability to define a different resource module for each, for example, function of a controller, because right now a single controller has a single resource module associated to it. So, for example, a user controller has user as the resource module in every single action. And in some applications, it's just more practical to let it be like more free. And last thing is that right now, if the resolver doesn't find a record via ecto, then it fires an exception, it throws an exception, and probably it would be better to let the user decide if it has to raise or actually do something totally different. So ideas for improvement. Basically, candidate features for 0.2 would address the shortcomings outlined in the previous slide. So root-based authorization and relevant additions to rule syntax, handle event authorization per resource or per controller or per live view action names, still to be decided. Selecting different resource modules in each function of a controller or live view, and record not found behavior customization. The next thing I'm thinking of is maybe exploring the possibilities of integration with Surface, because I was wondering how to create some kind of helper component. I can show you this here. This syntax is not something you can use right now, but basically it's kind of very boilerplate because it's equivalent to an if, which would just I can show you this. It's equivalent to something like this. So it's not really something very useful, maybe a bit prettier than this original version, because what you have to do is call the verify record function to check if the record actually is allowed to do something specific on a specific resource. So, for example, if the user wants to delete a specific article, then it just needs to be asked for. And as you can see, Jason, which is signed in at the right, cannot delete Michał's articles, but if we delete this condition here, so it means that the developer has like, okay, it's not this one, or maybe I used the wrong action here. I said it's half-baked, so don't kill me for that. Okay, let's remove this condition. So supposedly someone has forgotten to remove this delete button for some of the articles. And we can see that this error pops up. So everything's fine because we are not authorized to delete this article. And this is handled by the live views handle unauthorized callback. So that was just a quick example of how it's going to work. So Surface has this kind of context component, which I think works a bit similar to React context and allows us to do some kind of injecting of the current user down the rabbit hole in the tree of components. So I'm thinking of trying to create some kind of component which doesn't really require you to pass everything all the way down, because right now with this authorize function you still have to pass current user all the way down the component tree. So if you put this in a component, then this has to take the current user from the live view and so on. So that's not really a pretty thing. So it's worth trying out. Permit Ash. So Ash has its own opinion about how to deal with authorization. It has the notion of named policies, which are modules which define the behavior of a policy with an actor query. My position is that we should let it be. Ash lovers have their own opinion about how to do this, and that's fine. Translating Ash policies to permit rules is imaginable. The other way around, I think it would be it would not be practical because we have no notion of named policies here in permit. I haven't explored that yet, but it's, I think, a possibility. Permit.absint. It's maybe non-trivial to reason about since it probably calls for field authorization as well, because we don't have that yet. More on this in the next slide. However, this would be great to explore because many monorepo applications use both Phoenix and Absinthe, and this is like one of the major missing links. And field authorization, which is often asked for, and probably rightly so. It primarily requires us rethinking about whether it actually belongs to the scope of this library, because I think we haven't built this build permit with this in mind. But on the other hand, it would be quite nice to have the possibility to have one tool or a set of compatible tools which deal with all aspects of authorization at the same time. So this is something we will be thinking of as well. Right, so maybe now a Q&A session. So I am waiting for your questions in the chat. So question from Will, just let me see how I can actually share this with everyone. Okay, here it is. Are you aiming for the same can functionality plus live view? So if I understand the question well, is that then it's about whether the functionality of like automatically authorizing actions and so on is going to be the same with live view as with plug. Actually, the examples I was showing was from a live view application. So live view is actually there, and it's, if I'm not mistaken, it's like the first library which has both Phoenix plug and Phoenix live view integration. So if this was what the question was about, then I think this is the answer. And if I actually didn't understand it right, then you can clarify the question in the chat. Yeah, it's true that a lot of libraries aren't really written with live view in mind, but since this is becoming one of Phoenix's main selling points, then I thought it would be rather impractical not to at least try dealing with live view applications. So yeah, I actually think that some of the improvements which we could do, and I didn't really put this in the presentation, but something which is obviously which should obviously be on our plate soon, is stream support, because right now when you, for example, do an index action, accessible resources are loaded into the assigns, and obviously the modern way to deal with collections is to use streams. So that's something we probably need to take into account soon to be fully compliant with modern coding standards in LiveView. Okay, waiting for further questions. I think if there are no further questions, then thank you very much for listening to my short one. It was, as I said, in between a real presentation and a lightning talk, actually. So right now, I think
Oh, now can you hear me? Is everything okay?
hello, yeah, we can.
Okay, so let me share. So, okay, I can start, right? This stage is yours. Okay, so let me share a window here. So, can you see my screen? Yes, okay. So, I'm here to talk about two new episodes that I published in my podcasts in the last few days. The first one is with Gustavo Oliveira. Gustavo, let me just change here. Okay, Gustavo has been here maybe twice. He gave talks here at Curioso. Oh, and I should start by saying that I love the Curioso Meetup, and thanks for everything you've done this year. And this is a short conversation, 23 minutes, with Gustavo Oliveira. He's the creator of ELX Pro, which is a nice course on Elixir. And it's here. I can leave the link in the chat later. And also, I would like to say that me and Slava and Brujo, we have this podcast, Hello Ireland podcast, and we launched yesterday this episode called Nova Framework. Nova is a web framework for Erlang. Maybe the Nova guys should give a talk here. They are Daniel Widgren and Niklas Axelsson. So if you go to helloireland.github.io, you can listen to this episode or Oh, in this case, this is, oops, I changed the, yes. You can go to this link to listen to my conversation with Gustavo. And if you go to Hello Erlang, or if you go to any podcast platform and you put Hello Erlang, you will find our podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts, and let me show you here. Oh no, the problem is that I have to go to a different link. Yes, to this, then you can go to listen to Hello Erlang on Amazon Music, on Apple Podcasts, Castbox, and so on. This is our fourth episode. We had an episode 0, just Slava and me. We have had an episode with Yuri Zloba from Wargaming. He explains how he uses Erlang in the Ping games. And we have had a conversation about Zootonic with Mark Worrell. So if you want to learn more about my podcast, I also have, of course, I have a podcast in Portuguese. It's Elixir in Foco, the podcast of the Brazilian Elixir community. It's very active. I mean, every month we publish one episode. And if you go to our channel on YouTube, some of the episodes, not some, maybe 3 or 4, they have subtitles in English. So, for instance, this one with José Valim is very popular because it has good subtitles in English, but Valim is speaking in Portuguese here. And if you want to know more what I'm doing or I'm the videos, sometimes I produce videos, you can follow me on Twitter, X, at Adolfo NT. Hello Erlang also has a Twitter X account. It's Hello Erlang. And Elixir in Foco also has a Twitter X account, Elixir in Foco. So that's everything that I want to talk here. Thank you very much. I'm going to share the links in the chat.
Thank you very much, Adolfo, for sharing the information about the podcast as well as the new framework. I think indeed it would be great to listen to the frameworks creators in the meetups as well. So that's a great idea that we will definitely try doing. So here are the links in the chat. So guys, don't hesitate to visit Adolfo's pages here. Right. Does anyone have a question to Adolfo? So we'll wait for questions to Adolfo for a moment, and after that, obviously, also in the meantime, you guys can submit your ideas for spontaneous lightning talks in the chat if there is someone who would like to present something interesting. Right. If there are no questions to Adolfo, then thank you very much.
Thanks.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Right. Any other guests who would like to present something in this moment? Okay, so the question is, we would love to hear some info on why are you using Elixir, for example. I think I don't know if that's a question to us or to Adolfo, actually. Okay, so I will let Adolfo answer this in a moment. And speaking for myself, I think Elixir has been like the I'm not going to say trade-off, because it means that both aspects would be compromised at least a bit, but it's like a sweet spot between productivity and performance of applications. Like the development productivity is obviously something that's very important when choosing a technology to build teams around. And obviously there are several good reasons for which there are hundreds of programming languages out there, but only a bunch of them achieve this kind of mainstream and general purpose popularity. And obviously Elixir is not as popular as a number of totally mainstream languages like Java, Python, and so on. But it's kind of hitting a sweet spot, as I said, between productivity and the ease of building a team around it, and the performance and scalability of applications, because it's a technology which has allowed us to scale startups without actually changing anything in the technological stack, without any major changes in technological stacks, which is in contrast to, for example, Ruby on Rails, which kind of has a tendency to drive CTOs to do a change towards something which revolves around functional programming at some point, like the famous switch of Twitter from Ruby to Scala a number of years ago. So that's just one example of where scalability issues actually lead to the need to change your technological stack. So that's my take, and maybe I will also let Adolfo have his own take about that. So I'm letting you take the stage again.
Okay, so the question was about, oh, where is the question? Yes, why you're using Elixir? Well, I would not say that I'm using Elixir, except that I use Elixir with my students. I have an introduction to functional programming course, and if that's a way to use Elixir, yes. I'm a member of the education. Actually, right now I'm a co-chair of the education working group of the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation. So I suggest that anyone goes to the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation site and join us. It's free for regular members if you want to join. And then you can go to our Slack, and we really would love to have feedback from the community on our education working group activities. For instance, I believe this is a great because it's not only education, it's education adoption. This is a great activity that is in line with our goals. The goal is to bring to take the bean to more and more people. People should know what the bean is capable of. So, but my story with Elixir actually started because José Valim, who lives in Poland, but he's Brazilian. And I don't know if you know, but I believe this is public knowledge because he has told many people in interviews. He's married to a Polish woman, so he married and he now lives in Poland, but he's Brazilian. He created Elixir while he was living in Poland, but he's Brazilian. So when I got to know, oh, there's a programming language that many people all around the world are using and they find it interesting. And there was that book by Dave Thomas that said, oh, programming Elixir is great. And then I started to get involved with Elixir, and I discovered that the community, I believe the great strength of Elixir is its community. The community is great. People organize nice events and they produce material, and that's how I started to learn a little bit more about Elixir. But I'm far from a heavy user of Elixir. I don't. For instance, I know a bit about OTP. If you ask me to create a system with a heavy use of OTP, I would not, right now, I would not be able to do it. But I love Elixir, I love Erlang. There are other programming languages that I like too, like Glean and now Lean, who was also created by a Brazilian, but it's not related to Elixir or Erlang. It's a completely different uh, environment. I believe that's it.
Yeah, everyone has their own story about Elixir. I think I think many people have, for example, just like myself, come from the Ruby background, but I'm really glad that this misconception of Elixir being a language similar to Ruby is getting less and less popularity recently, because it's like comparing, I don't know, Turkish to Polish. It has the same alphabet, but basically that's where the similarities end. So that's my take on the relationship between these two. Although it doesn't end there, because the communities kind of overlap many times. Yeah. Would anyone else like to take the stage and share their own story about how you actually started using Elixir? Yeah, so we have some discussion in the chat as well, about from Aldo, who has written a whole web application from just sockets in Scheme some years ago, which was quite fun, but you prefer to use something more complete. Yeah, I think, well, the completeness of the solutions you choose, at least when building a business, is something really critical. Okay, Aldo has expressed the desire to take the stage for a moment, so I think I will switch on his microphone and camera, and the stage is yours.
Hello.
Hello.
You can hear me? Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So my story with Elixir. I don't remember how I came across the language or the system, but I'm always very curious. No. So as I said, I was exploring Scheme as a language. It was very interesting for me to experiment, and I even made some web application that actually was used in production. Of course, web application has many components and many functionality in production, and that shows its limits when one makes everything alone, and in a language that is even more niche, I think, than Elixir in this moment. So, the point is, then I came across, I had to do some application, and I came across with this framework and Phoenix, and I started immediately in, I don't know, 2 weeks. I handled to put it online with with the admin panel and everything. What I can say is that was not easy for me to maintain all these applications I was writing, because I mean, in Elixir, because it's changing so fast, and sometimes I want to keep up with the new things, and yeah, and I need to refactor and to study again how it's done now, the things, and yeah, it's not easy. So from since I don't know, was 2018 I started with this journey with Elixir, and any application I did was with that from there. What I can recently I had to do a very simple application, a simple website, very fast, and had to be multi-language and had to be well made at the same time, personalized. And I started to explore a little bit what are the website generators in the moment, and I could do in many ways, but no solution. I didn't like any solution because I had to learn another language, or I need to adapt. So then I came across with an article that explained how you could generate a website with just Phoenix, a static website. So from there, I watched how the concept, and it was all downhill, completely very easy, and for me it was very natural not to. And then what I think for me in my case is that website can grow and become dynamic, and I can almost port everything to the application version very easily. So yeah, more or less this is my little story. Yeah. But
Thank you for sharing your story. And something which I would like to ask you is whether you have used any of airlines like attempts to create a Lisp flavored language for the airline VM, because you mentioned using Scheme some time ago, and
yes.
just wondering if you have some experience with LFE, for example.
LF, I cannot listen.
LFE, Lisp flavored Erlang.
No, I never tried that. It's interesting. It's a new thing. I never even imagined that existed. Interesting. And what is it used? What is the use case, or?
Well, I am actually totally new to this thing, because I have just learned about the existence of it. But I'm just wondering if there are people out there who actually use this for something, well,
Interesting. I will check it out.
at least close to being production ready. Yeah, that's because I see that there is some active maintenance of this, because the recent commits have come last week. So if there are Lisp language fans out there, it's probably something worth having an eye on. I am not a fan of anything which has a million of parentheses inside of it. This is probably not something which is going to attract me ever. But I know this approach has a number of staunch fans. So here's a link if someone is interested in the idea.
Yeah, I have to say something about parentheses. Yeah, it's a flame war always, but actually, if you count them, they are more or less the same quantity as, let's say, C languages. But in the good point, it has less commas. Doesn't have commas.
Yeah.
So you save.
That's a good point. Yeah, and if you like manipulating ASTs and this kind of things, then it's really easy to reason about. Although I find Elixir's take on decomposing the code into ASTs and so on quite comfortable to use, and it's kind of as close to being a homoiconic language as it gets for it to be comfortable for me to use. Let's say. Yeah, so we have a remark from Will. If you come from Ruby, you probably know who Sandy Metz is. She was always an advocate for message-oriented OOP, which is very much what functional is all about, all things considered. Well, from some standpoints, Ruby is as object-oriented as it gets, and its principles are derived from Smalltalk in a very straight way. So that might be a good point. Yeah, anyone else would like to ask questions to Aldo or take the stage today?
Can I just ask one question more?
Yeah, sure.
You were showing before this perm library.
Yeah.
And you were showing some surface components or something I never saw before. This
Okay.
is it still the way to do some components, or is it some?
Surface is like an extension on live view. So here it is. It can be compared to a live view on steroids and provides some additional features to that. And I think the notion of components itself in live view has been taken from Surface at some point, because this has existed in Surface even before it came to life in things live view itself. So that's something you might be interested in. Right, a point from Muhammad. Currently, the main challenge in learning Elixir is the lack of tutorials and communities around my country. However, the new version docs include a getting started section from beginners. Yeah, it always helps to have a local scene of Elixir developers in your country. I think, well, the Polish scene is quite vibrant. The Brazilian one as well, obviously. Although I've heard from some Brazilian people that it looks big from the outside, but compared to others inside the country, it's still quite a bit of a niche. So maybe the perception we have is that, well, Jose is Brazilian, so Brazil is the biggest hub for that language in the world. I've heard that the German market is quite rich when it comes to people interested in Elixir. some other countries have been also emerging as kind of regional hubs for this technology. So I think Sigu, who was set to speak today, who is from Kenya, and Kenya also is some kind of a regional hub for this language. So okay, you're from Indonesia, so we hope this. We hope that your country emerges as a powerhouse in Elixir as well sometime in the future. Yeah, so I think thank you very much, Adolfo, for Aldo, sorry, for sharing your perspective about your Elixir journey. So if there are any further questions to any of us, feel free to ask them in the chat. And if there is one more person who would like to take the stage, then it's the last opportunity to do so. And obviously, don't hesitate to join our Discord server as well as the LinkedIn group. I posted the links somewhere up there in the chat, so maybe I will repeat that once more in a second, because this chat we are using here is not going to stay with us for long, and in Discord we are going to continue our conversations afterwards. So if you want to have the opportunity to stay in touch with other participants of the meetup, then Discord is probably the way to go. And if you're using LinkedIn regularly, then it's also good to join the group. So a recommendation from Will about the exercism.org page, and I also recommend that for the purpose of learning the language, because it has a really nice educational path for exercises for everyone. And a question from Joel. Any advice for a beginner just proficient in React and Flask and looking forward to learning Elixir? So I guess if you are proficient in React, then it means that you obviously, if this is modern React, then you should be also quite proficient in the functional style of programming itself. So it should not be very hard to grasp the basics in Elixir. If you are proficient in Flask, then you can compare it to Plug, which is one of the main components of the Phoenix framework, and deals with constructing pipelines of HTTP request processing. So that's probably something that you want to keep an eye on. And if you are also proficient in Python itself, then you should probably at least try forgetting about some of the habits you've had from your object-oriented programming career. Most design patterns are kind of useless here, but on the other hand, if you take the solid principles, then most of them obviously translated in a way to be applicable to functional programming, but they can be applied here as well. And there is a talk from the Elixir Conf EU about this from a few years ago. I think I will try finding this and put this in the chat as well. So that's some of the tips I have, I think. And obviously, Python has had the global interpreter log for many years, and this also means that with Elixir you have to learn a totally new concurrency paradigm as well. So that's another important thing if you want to migrate to this technology. Right. Someone's typing, so I will remain here for just one moment more. So so this is probably the last opportunity to ask questions in the chat. Right. If there are no further questions right now, you can move the discussion to the Discord server, which I keep posting in the chat. And thank you very much, Aldo, for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you
very much, Adolfo, for presenting the framework and your resources.
Thank you.
And this marks the end of today's meetup. The last thing I would like to let you know about is that in the next one we are going to listen to Joshua Plick, founder, entrepreneur, and an Elixir expert in mastering Elixir's Broadway, powering data adventure pipelines. So that's another exciting subject by a truly awesome speaker. You can see that clearly in our meetup recordings on YouTube, in which Joshua has already been a guest on the meetups for a few times. So I am very excited about the next one, and would like to invite you all to join us the next time around as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for being with us today.